Hello! It is late August 2023 and I'm in Glacier National Park for my first ever visit, about to set off on what's planned to be a 9-day backpacking adventure. I'm at the Poya Creek trailhead. It's pretty windy, so I'm going to hit the trail and give some details along the way. Two of my biggest challenges on this trip I've either already overcome or are currently passing. The first of those was just getting permits. I went in for some walk-up permits with an 8-day route in mind. Nice evenly spaced days, 10-12 miles a day. And what I merged with was a 9-day route with campsites ranging anywhere from 5 to 15 miles apart. Secondly, Hurricane Hillary is in the stages of passing through. It rained pretty hard yesterday. It's winding fairly steadily now, and there could be more rain bands coming through the rest of today and tonight. But after Hillary passes, the weather looks really solid for the next couple days. I've got about 6.5 miles to go today to get to the Poya Lake campsite. I'm ready to make some time. A big thank you to Michelle and Richard from Kalispell, who gave me a ride between trailheads this afternoon. My trip starts off along the Red Pass Trail, which is an alternate route of the Continental Divide Trail. A glimpse through the vegetation at Swift Current Ridge Lake. The path loops around part of Swift Current Ridge Lake. My pack is heavy. The Red Gap Pass Trail has been mostly a evergreen rainforest hike so far, but it does look like I'm getting close to popping out into some views here. Hurricane Hillary has been very cooperative for me. No rain on the hike so far. Does look like she's got a little more to say though. Home sweet home. I've made it to the Poya Lake campground. Hillary did start to drizzle a little bit, not too bad. I'm gonna go hang my food up and then find a tent site. Looks like I'm the first person to the campground today, so I will pick this spot. It's the farthest from the rest of them, and it also has a little bit of a view. In the Proterozoic era, about 1.5 billion years ago, Glacier National Park was covered by a massive inland body of water called the Belt Sea. Tent set up. I popped my boots off and got my camp shoes on. And now it's dinner time. On this trip, I'm using the Glacier and Waterton Lakes Nat Geo map number 215. Let's take a look at the map for day 1. Starting at the Apicoonie Trailhead, I followed Red Gap Pass Trail up to Poya Lake. Day 1 was about 6.5 miles. Day 1 has been a solid start to my trip. I enjoyed the pretty forest hiking interspersed with the sheer walls of the mountains, and Poya Lake makes for a beautiful camping area. The rain held off until the very end of the hike, and hopefully it'll be clear for the next couple days with the hurricane moving out. Camp set up, I've got dinner in me, and I need to get a restful night tonight because tomorrow could be my toughest day of the trip. And that'll be the end of day 1. Good night. Good morning. Made it to day 2 in Glacier National Park. Hurricane Hillary dropped a little bit of rain last night, so I gotta pack up a wet tent this morning. But it does look like she's trying to blow out of the area, and it could turn into a beautiful day once she finishes her exit. Today is my longest mileage day of the trip, and obviously that will be with a completely heavy and full pack. I'll have some tougher climbs later on, but I do have a big climb today up Red Gap Pass. I'm gonna finish packing up camp and be time to hit the trail. Leaving Poya Lake behind as I take the first several steps of my 14-mile day today. Hurricane Hillary hanging around a little bit. Maybe she'll keep it moving though, that's the hope. Making my way along the broad, U-shaped Kennedy Creek Valley. It's a moody day today. I keep thinking Hillary's on her way out and then another band rolls in. Scaling Red Gap Pass. Super windy. There's Kennedy Lake at the top of the glacial valley. The sun wants to pop out. Made it to the top of Red Gap Pass. Some absolutely horrendous winds have come through. This is looking the way I'll be heading down. I'm ready to hopefully drop a little bit, leave some of this wind behind. I found a tiny little sheltered alcove on my way down, a much needed respite. These are the strongest winds I've ever battled. They physically move me, and when I'm heading into them, they blow so hard that it's tough to breathe. But I'm getting close to the bottom and hope to emerge out of the winds down there. Oh, I am very thankful for some time in the trees, protected from the worst of the winds. It's not a warm day today. The forecasted high is barely above 50. And while my core temperature is staying fine, my appendages and extremities exposed to the wind, we're definitely feeling a little chilly. So it's nice to, as I said, have some protection from these beautiful trees. Elizabeth Lake. I do expect to get some place name pronunciations wrong on this trip, but I feel pretty confident about that one. Out through the haze, past Elizabeth Lake, is Helen Lake. I enjoyed lunch at the Elizabeth Lake Foot Campground. Made great time this morning, mostly because I was sprinting trying to get out of that wind. And it's nice to be down in the forest because the wind is still blasting. At some point after the Red Gap Pass Trail turned into the Ptarmigan Trail, which is the trail that I'm on now. And I put in so much work this morning that I've only got about 25% of my mileage left to handle this afternoon. So I'm gonna go knock that out, Big shout out to my buddies Cannon and Keegan. We've leapfrogged a couple times. They're out here having a good time. I'm out here having a good time. Let's keep it up. Coming down Red Gap Pass dropped me into the Belly River drainage, and the scenery is just spectacular along this falls of the Belly River. The spray is hitting me even up here. The base of Dawn Mist Falls. There's the belly, looking a little calmer. Finishing up my stretch of the Ptarmigan Trail, hopping on the Belly River Trail for the rest of the day, a couple miles to camp. A fat toad hopping through the forest. That's a big boy. Just popped out of the woods to an absolutely killer view. It's turned into a pretty day. I think it's a little hazy out here. A big old fence. And there is the Belly River Ranger Station, just a stone's throw from my camp. I'm gonna go see if anyone's home. Home sweet home. Made it to Gable Creek. This is the food prep area. I'm gonna hang my bag and then go find a tent site. There was a bunch of people at the ranger station. They were super nice. Hung my food and selected a tent site, the farthest one from the rest.
The Belt Sea deposited muddy, sandy, and limey sediments 11 miles deep. These layers contain abundant fossils of primitive cyanobacteria, mud cracks, ripple marks, and raindrop impressions.
Camp's all set up. A quaint little spot tucked away in the aspen and evergreen forest.
Let's take a look at the map for day 2. Starting at the Poya Lake campsite, I finished off my stretch of the Red Gap Pass Trail to connect with the Ptarmigan Trail onto the Belly River Trail to take me to the Gable Creek campsite. Day 2 was about 14 miles.
Day 2 has been a great day and an interesting one. Very spectacular scenery, mountains, lakes, the waterfall, and the hiking was not as bad as I anticipated. Took a little less than 5 hours to do the full 14 miles. The one thing that stood out though was that wind. That was the toughest wind I've ever hiked in. Very difficult conditions. But after getting up and down Red Gap Pass, it didn't have much of an impact on the rest of the day. I've got camp set up, dinner's in me, and I'm settling in for a relaxing evening. That'll be the end of day 2. Good night. Good morning. Made it to day 3 in Glacier National Park. A warm night last night. It did not even drop below 50, although the winds did continue throughout the night, but they are expected to taper off today. I'm enjoying a late morning, just hanging out with the other backpackers in camp. Today is the shortest day of my trip, only about 4.5 miles to go, but after today, I'll be back into a more regular routine of about 10 to 13 miles per day. So I'm going to get camp packed up and it'll be time to head to my next lake. Big views to start the day. I'm immediately breaking off the CDT alternate and hopping on the Stony Indian Pass Trail, which runs concurrently with the Pacific Northwest Long Trail. As a North Carolinian, I know plenty about hurricanes blowing through, and typically the first couple days after they move past are very clear, very nice, very sunny, so I'm hoping to experience that over the next few days here in Glacier. Gros Ventre Falls with an awesome pool at its base. A look at Cosley Lake, frothed by the wind and glittering in the sun. There's a lot of forest hiking in Glacier, which I really enjoy. I like to be protected in the forest, and then when you do pop out, the mountain views, the lake views, stunning. I've really enjoyed my first couple of days out here. First look at Glenn's Lake, which will host me for the night, and I should be very, very close to camp. Home sweet home. Glenn's Lake Foot. This is the food prep and food hang area. I'm gonna eat lunch, then go set up. I'm surprised to see some people already here. Barely noon. I actually picked the first campsite today because it had the best view through the forest to Glenn's Lake.
Plates of crust colliding with the western edge of North America between 150 to 35 million years ago forced up old Belt Sea rocks into mountains and slid them hundreds of miles out of place to form the Lewis Overthrust.
Tent's pitched, my food is hung. I guess I'm gonna have to settle in for a long, hard day of working on my tan on the Glenn's Lake beach.
Let's take a look at the map for day 3. From Gable Creek, I had a short hike along the Stony Indian Pass Trail to Glenn's Lake Foot. Day 3 was about 4.5 miles.
Day 3 has been a great day. Very nice short day of hiking. I did more napping than time on the trail, and I can't be mad at it. Glenn's Lake is a beautiful place to relax and charge up for the rest of my trip. Camp set up, I've got dinner in me, and I'm settling in for some more relaxing. That'll be the end of day 3. Good night. Good morning. Made it to day 4 in Glacier National Park. Another warm night last night, barely dropped below 50. We had a pretty interesting evening around the lake with several animal sightings. 2 beavers swam basically the whole length of the lake. There was a little rabbit who came out to play, and what looked like a bald eagle swooped by at some point. Breakfast in me, I'm going to get camp packed up, and today I have one of my longer days of the trip. Believe it's a bit over 13 miles to head up and over Stony Indian Pass to the Kootenai Lakes campsite. It's time to get ready and hit the trail. It seems I'm the first person to walk this stretch of the Stony Indian Trail today because the spider webs in between the vegetation are numerous. Glenn's Lake is a long one, and right through the trees we can see the head area of the lake. This campsite is completely closed due to bear danger currently. A massive set of cascading falls here on the dark side of the mountain. This place must not get much sun. That side of the valley gets it. Far down in the sunny reaches of the Macoanas River Valley, we can see Glenn's Lake. Glenn was my grandfather's name and is my brother's middle name. At Sena Lake, ringed by steep rocks with a couple tumbling waterfalls. It's a crystal blue day today. A nice look down on Atsina, Glenn's, and even Cosley as I continue to climb up Stony Indian Pass. I enjoyed lunch at this shallow, seemingly unnamed pond. Took a little rest. Now I've got the energy and fuel to make it all the way up
Stony Indian Pass and back down the other side. Shepherd Glacier. They say that in just a few years, many of Glacier National Park's glaciers will be gone. This appears to be my high point on the day. Stony Indian Pass, a little under 7,000 feet in elevation. I rose up from about 4,800 feet this morning, and I'll drop back down to I think 45 or 46. I always wonder why they don't just grade these things perfectly flat, but you know, maybe it takes a little bit of the fun out of it. Great alpine scenery here in Glacier. This has been the most scenic day of the trip so far. And right over the other edge of this pass, I should be able to see Stony Indian Lake. As promised, Stony Indian Lake, nestled beneath the Stony Indian Peaks. Looks like my trail continues to switch back down to the lake, and then we'll follow along the shore. Pass Creek Falls. Pass Creek will escort me down into the Waterton Valley. Finished up the Stony Indian Pass Trail. I'll now be heading on the Waterton Valley Trail, which runs concurrently with both the official route of the CDT and the Pacific Northwest Trail. The first Bear Scout on trail that I've seen in Glacier. Ooh boy, barely over a quarter mile to camp. Home sweet home. Made it to the Kootenai Lakes campground. Right on the edge of the Kootenai Lakes. I was beat to camp again today. Time to hang my food and find one of the tent sites. Here's my campsite. I picked the farthest one, as usual, except for last night. But usually. And it's got a nice view of Kootenai Lakes. Some mountains out the front porch. When the Belt Sea rocks were uplifted into mountains, the newer rock layers above them from the Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic eras were exposed and eroded away, leaving the nearly 1.5 billion year old Belt Sea sediment visible. Tents pitched. Excuse my laundry, it was a little bit of a sweaty day today. It's time to settle in for my pre-dinner rest. Let's take a look at the map for day 4. From Glens Lake Foot, I continued along the Stony Indian Pass Trail to connect with the Waterton Valley Trail to take me to the Kootenai Lakes campsite. Day 4 was about 14 miles.
Day 4 has been a great day filled with two constants. Very brushy trail and awesome scenery. Lakes, falls, mountains, even some glaciers. A day full of things to look at and plants to brush through. Kootenai Lake is another beautiful camping area. My tent's set up, dinner's in me, and I'm settling in for a relaxing evening. That'll be the end of day 4. Good night.
Good morning. Made it to day 5 in Glacier National Park. Another stunningly warm night last night. This time it didn't even drop down below the mid-50s. I'm enjoying the sunrise, looking out over Kootenai Lakes. My hiking today is expected to be fairly similar to the day yesterday. Double-digit miles, at least one climb up a pass. I'm looking forward to my campsite tonight, Brown Pass, although I will be starting on a new difficulty in the trip where 3 of my next 4 campsites are listed as dry at this time of year, so I may have to do some water carries starting with tonight up the Brown Pass. Got breakfast in me. I'm gonna get camp packed up and be time to hit the trail. There's a very distinct game trail heading through this meadow. Wonder if it could be carved by a moose. I'm passing through a little employee village type situation in the Goat Haunt Waterton area, and I see Waterton Lake up ahead. Waterton Lake, peering into the great north of Canada. They've got a huge suspension bridge here over the river. The load limit is 1 hiker at a time. Ooh, it's swaying. Oh, it's swaying. Made it across. Carrying on. The Boulder Pass Trail is going to be my trail for the rest of the day today. Another very brushy day today. Popped out to the shores of the pretty Lake Janet. It's a mostly sunny day today with a little bit of haze in the sky. Very fresh bear scat. This was dropped overnight at the latest. I've passed 2 groups this morning heading east from Hole in the Wall, which is the next campsite to the west of my campsite, Brown Pass. One group said that there's no water at Brown Pass. One group said that there is water at Brown Pass. The rangers said there's no water at Brown Pass, but rangers, they never know anything. So hopefully I'll pass another group to settle the tie break on whether there is water or not. If not, I'm gonna have to carry it all the way up. We'll see. I made a short detour off the Boulder Pass Trail to come eat lunch at Lake Francis, which was a brilliant decision because Lake Francis is probably the most scenic lake I've seen thus far on the trip. The water is a dazzling blue, surrounded by huge mountains with a majestic, towering waterfall feeding the lake. This is a nice spot here. Thunderbird Falls, flowing out of Thunderbird Glacier, in between the Hawksbill and Thunderbird Peak. Thunderbird Pond. It is now that I make my decision on whether I'm going to trust the hiker who said there's no water at Brown Pass and carry my water up from here, or trust the hikers who said there is water at Brown Pass and take the chance. I just passed another group of hikers who cast the deciding vote and said that there is no water at Brown Pass. Unfortunately, I'm already well past Thunderbird Pond, so I'm going to have to circle past Brown Pass and go another half mile toward Bowman Lake to get water. Not a big deal. It may even still be easier than carrying a bunch of water up this pass. I'm up in Brown Pass, just a quarter mile from the campground. It definitely looks like a very dry area. My standard operating procedure is to play it safe when it comes to water. Took a risk today, so I'm going to have to walk a little bit farther to make up for that. But it'll turn out okay. Home sweet home. Made it to the Brown Pass campground. This is the food prep area. Once again, I'm not the first person to camp. That's how it goes. I'm gonna go find some water and get set up. At the very least, the view on the walk to get the water is spectacular. There's flowing water, only a 3.5 minute walk. If it's less than 10 minutes round trip, I couldn't call that a dry campsite. Water retrieval successful. Time to get the tent pitched. In the Pleistocene epoch, huge glaciers advanced and retreated in cycles that scoured the Montana landscape. During the last major glaciation event about 20,000 years ago, Glacier would have been totally covered with ice. My site's a little sunny, a little shady, with a pleasant breeze. Time to settle in for my pre-dinner rest. And there's a pair of deer here who are way too familiar and comfortable with being around people. This guy is about 25 feet from my tent, doing his thing, living life. Don't come down here. Keep it moving. Keep it moving. Let's take a look at the map for day 5. From Kootenai Lakes, I followed the Waterton Valley Trail to connect with the Boulder Pass Trail up across to Brown Pass campsite. Day 5 was about 12 miles.
Day 5 has been another great day. Towering waterfalls, shimmering lakes, imposing mountains, and even a couple of deer making an appearance in camp. Pretty much stressed most of the day about the water situation at Brown Pass, and it ended up being a non-factor. But there probably are times of the year where there is no water up here. For me, it was just a short walk down towards Bowman. Camp set up, dinner's in me, and I'm gonna settle in for a relaxing evening. As long as these deer don't become a nuisance. That'll be the end of day 5. Good night.
Good morning. Made it to day 6 in Glacier National Park. Coldest night of the trip so far. I'm also at my highest elevation by about 2,000 feet and dropped down to the mid 40s. Not really too bad overall. The deer stayed away throughout the night, but there was a little rabbit or something who was rummaging around camp for a bit. No worries, got a great night's sleep. Easy day today. Basically rehashing yesterday, except 3 miles shorter and downhill. So I expect it to be no problem. And then once I get to camp, I'll be spoiled at the goat haunt shelters. I'll have a roof, running water, real bathroom, and we'll get to enjoy the view of Waterton Lake. So I'm looking forward to it. Gonna finish packing up and be time to hit the trail.
Brown Pass is a pretty place. It was worth it to hike up here just to hike back down. Get to see this area a little bit. My buddies Will and Jim climbed all the way to the top of Thunderbird Peak yesterday. Sounded like a pretty gnarly route. Thunderbird Pond in the morning light. It's warming up quickly on a bluebird day. Through the trees is the brilliant blue of Lake Francis. Back to yesterday's fresh bear scat. The water levels at the head of Lake Janet are very low, more like Stream Janet. A little wetter view of Janet. Heading back across the big swinging bridge. It's a little windy. Oh, it's swaying. Oh, it's swaying. Oh boy. Let's go, let's go. Uh-oh. Woo! Almost there. Alright, nice. I'm also almost to camp, closing in on the goat hunt shelters. Waterton Lake. Way down a ways, I guess we can see into Canada. I think it's a couple miles away. But this little station over here to the right has both an American flag and a Canada flag. And supposedly right behind that is where the shelters are. I'm nearly there. Home sweet home. This is one of the goat hunt shelters where I'll be posted up tonight. Finally, since the first day, I'm the first person to arrive to camp. Just when you think a view doesn't get any better, add in the stars and stripes. There's people across the way on the dock and a bear just ran up on them. A black bear, I can barely see it. Oh goodness. The bear's still hanging around, he's right in these bushes. And this whole boat of people is about to pull up. Uh-oh. Beaver swimming by with a branch. Looks like it's building a little dam underneath the dock. Let's take a look at the map for day 6. From Brown Pass campsite, I retraced my steps down the Boulder Pass trail to get to the goat hunt shelters. Day 6 was about 9 miles. Day 6 has been a great day with a little bit of hiking and a lot of relaxing on Waterton Lake. A bear encounter to top things off, and no one ended up being harmed by the bear. It ran away once everyone arrived. There's not much camp to set up with the shelter, but dinner's in me, and I'm settling in. That'll be the end of day 6. Good night. Good morning. Made it to day 7 in the Waterton Glacier International Peace Park. Restful night last night, spoiled with the shelters and the bathroom and the running water and the view. Today I'm back into the double digits, heading out towards 50 Mountain. This will be my biggest climbing day of the entire trip, but I think I'll be able to manage it. I'm gonna finish up breakfast, get the few things to pack up camp in my bag, and it'll be time to hit the trail. Porcupine Ridge, the Hawksbill, Brown Pass, Olson Mountain, Campbell Mountain, and then as we break into Canada, we're going to see Mount Richards. Through the trees, we can barely see Mount Bleveland, the highest point in the park. There's the turnoff to Kootenai Lakes Campground. I'll be continuing along the Waterton Valley Trail. The first 3 miles of my hike today were the same as the first 3 miles of my hike 2 days ago, just in reverse, between Kootenai and Goat Hunt. And then the second 3 miles today, my next 3 miles, will be the same as 3 days ago, in between Stony Indian Pass and Kootenai. And then after that, the second half of my day will be all new ground towards 50 Mountain. I've arrived at the Stony Indian Junction. I'm going to continue down the Waterton Valley Trail, and every step for the remainder of my trip will now be breaking new ground. Here is Pass Creek in the Pass Creek cabin. We last saw Pass Creek a couple days ago as it escorted us down from Stony Indian Pass. Starting to earn some views as I climb up, and climbing will be my modus operandi for the rest of the day today. Someone lost a hiking pole down this chute. Up and away as the sun beats down on this crystal blue day. It's so hot. It's wild to me how those glaciers persist despite baking in the sun day after day. There's a big old bird walking down the trail. He's literally just following the trail. I guess he's just clearing the way for me. I appreciate that, big bird. There he is. At least the trail through here is cutting through some tree shade for me as it continues to climb. Looks like the remains of an old structure here. I've risen above 7,000 feet for the first time on this trip. With all the incredible alpine scenery that Glacier offers, you'd be forgiven for thinking that the hiking is a lot higher than it is. But it's really quite low. I could hike the Black Mountains in North Carolina and be higher than I was for most of the day today. But there's nothing 7,000 plus out there. Bear scat alert. Not fresh. Closing in on camp. We'll see very soon if 50 Mountain is dry, as the ranger said it was, or if it's wet. If it's dry, I'll have to backtrack up to this plateau to gather water from one of the little trickles running across it. Uh-oh. We've got a bear frequenting warning here at 50 Mountain. Maybe it'll be 2 bears in 2 days for me. Hopefully not. Home sweet home. I got beat to camp again. I'm just not working hard enough out here. Time to find a site and find some water. Well, the rangers got this one right. There's no flow right at camp, but only 50 yards upstream, some nice water, which is what they said. This is the site for me. A little alcove looking down on the rest of camp. Actually did not see a single person on trail today. There was a couple people at goat hunt with me this morning, and a couple boys who are up here at camp at 50. No one in between. The Pleistocene Ice Age glaciers carved eye-catching features in the Belt Sea rocks, including U-shaped valleys, horns, arêtes, cirques, moraines, and more. Camp's all set up. I like this site because it has a protective barrier on one side. Hopefully funnel the bears into one direction. And then the other side has a pretty killer view. Let's take a look at the map for day 7. From the goat hunt shelters, I followed the Waterton Valley Trail up to the 50 Mountain campsite. Day 7 was about 11 miles.
Day 7, a week's worth of adventures, has been another great day. I think this was the second toughest day of the trip after day 2. Very hot day today with a lot of climbing. That's a difficult combination. But I made it up to the beautiful 50 Mountain campsite. I've got camp set up, dinner's in me. Now I'm settling in for a relaxing evening. That'll be the end of day 7. Good night.
Good morning. Made it to day 8, the penultimate day in Glacier National Park. No bears last night, but I do have a mule deer friend this morning who came by to say hey. Another calm, comfortable night of sleep. I've got one big day of hiking left to get to Granite Park. Should be a little easier than yesterday, although it's looking like another hot one. Gonna finish up breakfast, get camp packed, hang out with my deer friend for a little bit, and it'll be time to hit the trail.
We're looking at my first challenge of the day, which will just be getting up this big old talus-y looking hill to get to the other side via the Highline Trail. We've got a bold little varmint here on the slopes. He's not too concerned about my presence. He's got his eye on his hole, but he's not going for it. I guess he thinks I look weak. Or really, he's just wanting to enjoy this view. Can't blame him for it. Starting out as another crystal blue day. Certain to be hot, but stunningly beautiful. Made it up that pass lickety split. I had to show that varmint I wasn't weak. So maybe next time he'll put a little respect on my name. Looks like I got a little downhill portion. Then I think they said there'd be another uphill. Shouldn't be as much climbing as yesterday, that's for sure. Peering down into the Mineral Creek drainage off the side of Flat Top Mountain. I've had a nice little stretch of trail in and out of the shade, and even just being out of the sun for part of the time is a big help. Popped out of the trees to some giant views. It's clear and sunny now, but everyone's been saying there's rain moving in tonight for the next couple days. We'll see what impact that has. Not a worry for the moment. I spy with my little eye my trail cutting across the face of the mountain. Shout out to Makate and his crew. Oh, the view from Ahern Pass is definitely worth the climb. Looking down on Helen Lake and Elizabeth Lake. Hidden over the edge of the precipice is Ahern Glacier. It's a nice view coming back down the pass as well. I'm going to reconnect with the Highline Trail and finish off the second half of my day after I enjoyed a picturesque lunch up at Ahern Pass. A stretch of my upcoming hike will be in the shade. Very nice. This trail stretches for about 2 miles just to come all the way up in the head of this basin and wrap back around. A lot of hiking to get through one little area. Pretty hiking though. Large views. Still hiking above Mineral Creek. There is the Granite Park Chalet. I'm not heading towards it though. I'm going to head down to the right towards the Granite Park Campground. Home for the night. Granite Park was listed as dry, but there's water flowing right through camp. Home sweet home. Granite Park Campground, the food prep area. Gonna hang my food, set up, gather some water, settle in. The park's modern glaciers are remnants from the Little Ice Age, which ended in 1850. Since foundation in 1910, more than 80% of Glacier's glaciers have been lost, with the remaining few expected to follow suit. All set up. Met my neighbors. Time to settle in for my pre-dinner rest. Let's take a look at the map for day 8. From the 50 Mountain campsite, I hiked the Highline Trail all the way to the Granite Park campsites. Day 8 was about 13 miles. Day 8 has been another great day in Glacier. Lots of open, scenic hiking, which also led to lots of sun exposure, but I don't want to complain about the sun too much
because with this potential for rain and thunderstorms coming in, I may be wishing for the sun back very soon. The detour out the Ahern Pass was totally worth it to see the lake spread out and the glacier perched below. I've got camp set up, dinner's in me, and I'm settling in for a relaxing evening. That'll be the end of day 8. Good night.
Good morning. Made it to day 9. Final day of my trip in Glacier National Park. It has been raining for the last 16 hours straight with not a break. Everything is soaking wet. And I've got, I think, like 8.5 miles to hike out today in the rain. Hopefully I can knock that out pretty quickly. I'm not sure how much filming I'll be doing on the way out. I guess it depends on how things look in the rain. But the day's getting started and the trip's getting finished, and it's time to hit the trail. This may be Swift Current Pass, or it may not be. Who knows? Can't really see it anyways. My day started out cold and wet. Now it's turned cold, wet, and windy. Thankfully, I'm back in the trees for a little bit. I think it's fair to say that conditions today are not ideal. But we'll get through it. The mountain is weeping today. So am I. That was a tough end to a great trip. But I was able to finish up my first ever visit to Glacier National Park. 9 days done and dusted. Obviously the scenery is incredible out in Glacier. Awesome hiking. Had good weather for the most part until the rain came in today, and a little bit of sun heat throughout the trip. One of the things I was most hesitant about with Glacier was the shared campsites. But it ended up being one of the things that I enjoyed the most, getting to spend time with people who had similar interests. I like Glacier so much that I'm gonna ride back over to the ranger station, try to get some permits for my next adventure out here. Until next time, thanks for tuning into Lane's World. Goodbye. Let's take a look at the map for day 9. Starting at Granite Park campsites, took the Swift Current Pass trail in the rain, the wind, and the cold, down to Many Glacier. Day 9 was about 8.5 miles for a trip total of approximately 93 miles.